There's not much to do when all I can is thinking about you. Not doing well, don't know
Guys,
it.
welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for 248 subscribers to my YouTube channel. This is Magnificent Kimberly here. So today I actually decided to do a historical theme type of topic. So today, since October, I think it's October 7th or 9th. I'm not sure, but I think it's October 9th. I'm not sure. But sometime in October, in a week or so, is actually Indigenous Peoples Day. It was first known as Columbus Day, but recent years has kind of shown up evidence that Columbus did not discover America and that was false. So now this month is actually Indigenous Peoples Month, so it's Indigenous Peoples Day that is coming up. So because of that, I wanted to do some research on this topic, and I just wanted to make a video about it. So without further ado, let's get into it. So indigenous people are actually culturally distinct people who share a common history with the lands and natural resources that where they live. They have their own languages, of course, their own languages, own cultures, belief and knowledge systems, even religions, and they often have a strong connection to their traditional lands. As a matter of fact, UMBC, which was the school that I was going to, I think there were like Native people who had I forgot how they explained it, but basically, I think it was like it was the their native land before it was actually a school. Like UMBC had native, it was like a link to native people or something like that. Let's see. I pulled it up, so here we go. So this is what it says. The University of Maryland, Baltimore County, slash also known as UMBC, which is the school that I went to for 6 years, is connected to Native peoples. UMBC was established on the land of Piscataway and Susquehannock peoples. University acknowledges the past, present, and future indigenous people who were connected to this land. The U.S. history is rooted in colonization and exploitation of indigenous peoples. The government gifted land to higher education institutions, which then sold the land to speculators or used it themselves, which I did not know. Also, some say that to fix the history of land grab universities, stolen land must be returned and reparations committed. Also, UMBC's vision is connected to cultural diversity, where it acknowledges knowledge, economic prosperity, and social justice by welcoming and inspiring inquisitive minds from all backgrounds. UMBC was established upon the land of Piscataway and Susquehannock peoples. Over time, citizens of many more indigenous nations have come to reside in this region. Learning Columbus Day Miss and celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. So many students learned the phrase in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But Columbus was not the first foreign explorer to land in Americas. Neither he nor those that came before him discovered America, because indigenous peoples have populated the Western Hemisphere for tens of thousands of years. European contact resulted in devastating loss of life, disruption of tradition, and enormous loss of lands for indigenous peoples in Americas. It is estimated that in 130 years following the first contact, Native America lost 95% of its populations. Indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere immediately experienced enslavement and theft of resources by the explorers turned settlers. Colonies created by the Portuguese, Spanish, French, Dutch, and English grew throughout the Americas and increasingly encroached upon native lives and lands. Warfare, enslavement, and forced relocation disrupted and altered the lives of indigenous peoples in the Americas. Celebrating Columbus and other explorers like him dismisses the devastating losses experienced by indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere in the past and the ongoing effects of colonialism today. Indigenous people are still here. Contemporary Native Americans have led numerous movements to advocate for their own rights. Native people continue to fight to maintain the integrity and viability of indigenous societies. American Indian history is one of cultural persistence, creative adaptation, renewal, and resilience. Native people, students, and allies are responsible for official celebrations of Indigenous Peoples Day in such states in Oregon, Louisiana, New Mexico, Iowa, and Washington, D.C. Indigenous Peoples Day is celebrated on the second Monday of October and recognizes the resilience and diversity of Indigenous peoples in the United States. So the second week of October, so that's October 14th. Um, it recognizes the resilience and diversity of Indigenous peoples in the United States. We promote including Indigenous perspectives like those of the Taino peoples to provide a more complete narrative about Columbus. We encourage student strategy for Indigenous Peoples Day as a replacement for Columbus Day in our school, city, state, and beyond. There we go. This is much better. We're going to read two more articles, and then we're going to be done. So I'm going to stop sharing this particular screen. A Proclamation on Indigenous Peoples Day 2021. So I think this was created 2021 at house.gov. And I'm also going to put all these articles in the video description. But whenever it includes the .gov part towards the end, I think usually means it's a credible source. And so, yeah. Since time immemorial, American Indians, Alaska Natives, and Native Hawaiians have built vibrant and diverse cultures, safeguarding land, language, spirit, knowledge, and tradition across the generations. On Indigenous Peoples Day, our nation celebrates the invaluable contributions and resilience of Indigenous peoples, recognizes their inherent sovereignty, and commits to honoring the federal government's trust and treaty obligations to tribal nations. Our country was conceived on the promise of equality and opportunity for all people, a promise that despite the extraordinary progress we have made through the years, we have never fully lived up to. That is especially true when it comes to upholding the rights and dignity of the Indigenous people who were here long before colonization of the Americas began. For generations, federal policy systematically sought out to assimilate and displace Native people and eradicate Native cultures. Today, we recognize Indigenous people's resilience and strength, as well as the immeasurable positive impact that they have made on every aspect of American society. We also recommit to supporting a new, brighter future of promise and equity for tribal nations, a future grounded in tribal sovereignty and respect for the human rights of Indigenous people in the Americas around the world, such worldwide. In the first week of my administration, I issued a memorandum in reaffirming our nation's solemn trust and treaty obligations to American Indian and Alaskan Native tribal nations and directed the heads of executive departments and agencies to engage in regular, meaningful, and robust consultation with tribal officials. It is a priority of my administration to make respect for tribal sovereignty and self-governance the cornerstone of federal Indian policy. History demonstrates that Native American people and our nation as a whole are best served when tribal governments are empowered to lead their communities when federal officials listen to and work together with tribal leaders when formulating federal policy that affects tribal nations. The contributions that Indigenous people have made throughout history in public service, entrepreneurship, scholarship, the arts, and countless other fields and areas are integral to our nation, our culture, and our society. Indigenous people have served and continue to serve the United States Armed Forces with distinction and honor at one of the highest rates of any group defending our security every day. And Native Americans have been on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic, working essential jobs and carrying us through our gravest moments. Further, in recognition that the pandemic has harmed Indigenous peoples at an alarming and disproportionate rate, Native communities have led the way in connecting people with vaccination, boosting some of the highest rates of any racial or ethnic group. The federal government has a solemn obligation to lift up and invest in the future of the Indigenous people and empower the tribal nations to govern their own communities and make their own decisions. We must never forget the centuries-long campaign of violence, displacement, assimilation, and terror wrought upon Native communities and tribal nations throughout our country. Today, we acknowledge the significant sacrifices made by Native peoples to this country and recognize their many ongoing contributions to our nation. Our Indigenous Peoples Day, we honor America's first inhabitants and the tribal nations that continue to thrive today. I encourage everyone to celebrate and recognize the many Indigenous communities and cultures that make up our great country. Now, therefore, I, Joseph Biden Jr., so it was President Joe Biden who wrote this. Now, therefore, I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States of America, do hereby proclaim October 11, 2021 as Indigenous Peoples Day. But this year, it falls on October 14, 2024. I call upon the people of the United States to observe this day with appropriate ceremonies and activities. I also direct that the flag of the United States be displayed on all public buildings on the important day in honor of our diverse history and Indigenous peoples who contribute to shaping this nation. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand this 8th day of October in the year of our Lord 2021 and of the independence of the United States of America, the 246. Joseph R. Biden. That was the second article. Now I'm going to read. So now I'm going to read the last article. Now I'm going to be reading, and then we're going to wrap this up. People Day, a day of celebration, protest, and reclaiming history. Charles Island to a park in New York City, Native American people will celebrate their centuries-long history of resilience on Monday with ceremonies and dances and speeches. The event across the U.S. comes 2 years after President probably 4 years by now, but after President Joe Biden officially commemorated Indigenous Peoples Day. An increasing number of states and cities have also recognized it, pivoting from a day long rooted in a celebration of Christopher Columbus to one focused on the people of whose lives and culture were forever changed by colonialism. This day is about reclaiming histories. An associate professor at American Indian Studies at the University of California, Los Angeles, is acknowledging the history of dispossession and violence against Indigenous people. Here's a look at why it's called Indigenous Peoples Day, the history behind it, and how people celebrate. Why is it called Indigenous Peoples Day? Indigenous Peoples Day has been recognized for decades in different forms and under a variety of names to celebrate Native Americans' history and culture and to recognize the challenges they continue to face. In 2021, Biden issued the first ever presidential proclamation of the Indigenous Peoples Day. He said in a statement that day is meant to honor America's first inhabitants and the tribal nations that continue to thrive today. It is typically observed on the second Monday in October, the same day as Columbus Day, a federal holiday established decades ago to recognize Columbus' sighting in 1492 of what came to be known as Americas. Columbus was a lost explorer who stumbled into this part of the world and brought famine, colonization, the deaths of millions of indigenous people, said Nick Tilson, president and CEO of Indian um, Collective, an indigenous-led advocacy group for this country. To celebrate that history is absolutely disrespectful. I truly agree. And honestly, I never celebrate Columbus Day because I already knew that Columbus did not discover America. Like you've been seeing these articles, how I'm reading them. Um, there were natives that were already here on the island before Columbus, ever came. So natives are the ones who um, discovered the Americas that were already here. So it should have been credit to them from the get go, from the beginning. And now all these things are changing. I'm glad they're changing, but it should have, they should never have accredited Columbus as the first person to discover America because that was not so. But y'all know how it goes. But yeah, People's Day a federal holiday. Although it's not a federal holiday, 17 states, including Washington, South Dakota, and Maine, as well as Washington D.C., have holidays honoring Native Americans, some of which are on the second Monday in October, according to the Pew Research Center. Indigenous people is typically paired with Columbus Day or replaces the federal holiday altogether. Dozens of cities and school systems observe Indigenous Peoples Day as well. Later this year, which is in 2021, I believe, um, Anchorage and Phoenix became two of the latest municipalities to officially designate Indigenous Peoples Day a holiday. And on Monday, several U.S. lawmakers announced that they have reintroduced legislation meant to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day as a federal holiday. Its significance for Native Americans has more to do with the fact that it's a day the U.S. has celebrated Columbus, explained Cliff Matias, cultural director for the New York-based Red Hawk Indigenous Arts Council. We celebrate our survival of Columbus and all that he brought. Matias, whose indigenous nations are Taino and Quechua, said a more suitable day to honor Native people will be the summer solstice, which is a powerful day for indigenous people all over the world. It might be some sort of day that we recognize generally correlating with our connection to the planet. Still, Thiessen said, celebrating on this day is powerful. When we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day in place of Columbus Day, it shows a victory for indigenous people. It represents how we won't be erased, how we still stand in our power no matter what they did to try to kill us and steal our land. How do we celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day? Well, Indigenous Peoples Day is meant to recognize the painful history Indigenous people have faced, experienced, and encountered, and to celebrate their communities. But it is also a day of protest and resistance. The day is often marked with protests against memorials to Columbus for environmental justice, for the return of indigenous lands, and in honor of missing and murdered indigenous women. Tilson said he often participates in protests the day before, celebrating with the native food, performances, art, music, and traditional ceremonies. Recognition of the day itself follows organizing by indigenous people since the 1970s, said Mays, who was black in Saginaw Inish, Initiate. Initiate. Activists say the effort to replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day has been resisted by people who view Columbus as a representative of Italian American history. Thyssen said the issue is not an either or. Italian Americans have made so many contributions to America, and that should be celebrated, but not like this. There is so much more Italian American history that should be celebrated instead. As many as 3,000 people are expected to travel to Alcatraz Island early Monday morning to mark its occupation by Native Americans for 19 months beginning in 1969, and what is often described as the original land back movement, said Morningstar Galley, California travel liaison for the International Indian Treaty Council, which organized the event. It is really a celebration of our resilience and resistance, and it's an effort of reclaiming the visibility of Native peoples, especially for California, said Galley, member of the Ajumawi band of the Pit River tribe. The event has taken place for more than 45 years and will include a sunrise prayer, traditional dance groups, and indigenous speakers from all over the world. In New York City, Native people, including tribal chiefs, will gather through the long weekend at Randall's Island Park, the ninth annual gathering, a collaboration of 14 indigenous organizations and area tribes in the New York City metropolitan region will include prayers in honor of the original inhabitants of the city, explained Matthias, founder of the event. There will also be events across Phoenix, including one organized by the Herd Museum called Growing for the Future, which will celebrate indigenous culture with music, film screenings, and fried bread. And in Michigan, there is an Indigenous Peoples Day event at Mid Michigan College, expected to feature leaders from Saginaw, Chippewa Indian tribe, and the state's lieutenant governor. It was meant to facilitate collaboration between Native people and the broader community. For people wanting to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, Tilson said that they should look out for more community events and learn more about about the indigenous communities in their areas. Yeah, I pray you guys enjoyed this video. It honestly was so refreshing, and I honestly love learning about different cultures and the history and the heritage and the movement and the meanings behind their culture, and just the deep rooted history of how things originated and stuff like that. And as I don't know if I'm exactly Native American, but my mom is Native American from the Blackfoot tribe. That's the tribe that she's historically and ancestrally from. So it was also important for me to do this because my mom is also Native American slash American Indian slash Indian American, however you want to put it. So this was like very informative. This is very educational, and I really do want to do more videos like this because it's really important to learn about your history, like not just about Black history, like the history, like the your own culture, but it's also important to know about other cultures, just to get an understanding of their history and how things originated and certain movements that that took place historically, and even up to now, all the movements that are taking place currently and stuff like that. So, if you want me to do more historical, I really don't know what it would be called, but if you want me to do more history-based videos like this, where I talk about the history of certain cultures or tribes or um, nationalities and stuff like that, please let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what you think about this video. Um, and Friday I will be, and for upcoming announcements, Friday I will be doing a what's it called? I will be uploading my wash day routine slash my styling routine all in one. It's gonna be like an hour long, so be prepared for that. It's gonna be a very long video, but I never really posted a hair video of me doing like of my wash day and then of me styling my hair. And this video was way more detailed. Like, yeah, so y'all gonna see it. I hope you guys will enjoy that too. And yeah, I just thank you for watching. And if there's anyone who is American Indian or has or knows anyone who is American Indian or who is a Native American or who is a Native in general, and I express my deep gratitude And deep gratitude to you guys. And I am praying that you guys have gotten all the reparations and all the land that um, Columbus and his explorers stole from you guys, because that was absolutely not right. And as you guys know, like I said, the school I went to, the university I went to, UMBC, it is also like ancestrally linked to natives, because UMBC was actually again, it was, I guess it was a native land. Before it was a school, I guess it was a native land. And the thing I love about UMBC is they always give acknowledgement to the natives who were there, who were either went to the school before them, who were on that land before them. They always give acknowledgement to them. So I think that's important. See you guys later. Bye.
My dear, why do you always settle for something less? You know that, baby, you deserve an